The Secrets of Middle-earth is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Middle-earth, where we discuss the hidden themes and deeper layers found in the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, whether in his writings or in any of the media derived from them. Be sure to follow The Secrets of Middle-earth in Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, or in any podcast directory or app of your choice. And you can find us on social media, of course, where we are on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, on X, where we are at SQPN, or on Instagram, where we are at StarQuest Network. And don't forget, you can get your own official Secrets of Middle-earth merch, including our awesome t-shirt that has the Races of Middle-earth with the Hail Mary in Tengwar at our shop at sqpn.com/merch. It's a great way for everybody to support the show and to show your love for Tolkien and his wonderful world of Middle-earth. And joining me tonight on the panel are Jeff Haecker. Hello, Jeff.
Thomas.
And Pat Mason. Hello, Pat.
Howdy, Thomas.
So tonight we begin one of the great tales of Middle-earth, which, in the words of Tolkien himself, among the tales of sorrow and of ruin that come down to us from the darkness of those days, there are yet some which amid weeping there is joy, and under the shadow of death light that endures. And of these histories, most fair still in the ears of the elves is the tale of Beren and Lúthien. Of their lives was made the lay of Luthien, release from bondage, which is the longest save one of the songs concerning the world of old. But here the tale is told in fewer words and without song. Yes, we will not be singing the Lay of Luthien here, unfortunately. But that's right. It is Beren and Lúthien, which is also appropriate because as we record this, it's still February, so we are still technically in Valentine's Day month for the greatest love story of the Legendarium.
I'm just about to enter into Lent as well.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, just about to enter Lent. And there's much suffering to be had in Beren and Lúthien's story, like all the Silmarillion tales. But before we get too deep into it, Jeff, you have some exciting news for us.
Yes, so after talking about it for several months now, Rings of Power Season 3 is officially renewed. Or the Rings of Power is officially renewed for Season 3, I should say.
Yay!
And thought I'd just quote the log line or the article from the Hollywood Reporter. It says, "The Hollywood Reporter can reveal the show is executing a major time jump going into the new episodes, with Sauron now crafting the iconic One Ring. And here's the exclusive log line. Jumping forward several years from the events of Season 2, Season 3 takes place at the height of the War of the Elves, and Sauron, as the Dark Lord, seeks to craft the One Ring that will give him the edge he needs to win the war and conquer all Middle-earth at last."
Bum, bum, bum.
Dun, dun, dun. So you tell me there's a single ring that rules all over all these other rings? Are you kidding me? Come on. One ring to rule them all, I bet.
I think they're overplaying the time jump a little bit. I don't think it's going to be that major of a time jump to the point where like our mortal characters all age significantly. I think it's only going to be like.
I think it's probably a smart decision, though, to have a little bit of a time jump at least, because this way it's not like Season 1 or Season 2 jumping in right where Season 1 ended, because then, we'd have Sauron marching back to Mordor with the orcs and all that. And I don't think, with the limited time we have, because I'm assuming it'll be 8 episodes and it'll take, 3 years to make. But, we don't want to see stuff like that. We want to see the story progress. And, at this point, it's still not renewed for, beyond that. So we want to leave it in a place that, if they don't renew it, which, I think they will, but, if they don't renew it, that it ends in a place that, the series can, you can imagine the rest of it happening, as per the Akalabeth. So I'm excited for it. Was happy to finally hear it was renewed, even though it's kind of been unofficially renewed for a while now, with the creators talking about that they're writing it and working on it and stuff. So, I'm excited about it. And, like I said, it'll probably be 2 or 3 years. Or I'm hoping what they'll do is they'll renew 4 and 5 at some point soon, and they'll kind of write them back to back and then shoot them, pretty close together. So that way there's less of a, there's not 2 years in between each season like we've had so far. So, and, with no strikes, hopefully that'll, streamline the process as well. So.
Right. I think as long as Jeff Bezos doesn't run out of money, which I don't think is going to happen anytime in the next millennium, we should get future seasons, hopefully.
His wife literally signed a thing that said she was going to try and die penniless, and she can't. She still makes more money than she gives away every year, and she is so and he's not doing that. So, or I should say his ex-wife. I'm sorry. So he's not going to run out of money. It's not going to happen. I was glad to see it renewed. It got some pretty bad watch numbers, I guess, out of.
It was pretty low compared to season 1 and compared to other things on Amazon, but
yeah. And I was a little worried after seeing those numbers. I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
But gonna get our season 3. I don't know, somewhat optimistic it'll be good. Cautiously even. Yeah.
So everyone just needs to keep watching Rings of Power on repeat for the next, few years and bump those numbers up.
Yeah. So we only have to find 2 or 3 years, worth of Legendarium content to which shouldn't be a problem because it's
so hard to do.
So hard. Yeah. I know, right? Which they keep publishing more stuff. I still haven't gotten my hands on those poetry books, which apparently contain new information, specifically about dragons, which was really interesting. I was watching a video on that where apparently we learn there's a whole book, a whole poem in the book about Skatha, who's one of the dragons that's just mentioned in passing. And apparently he's a cold. Now we've known he was a cold drake, but we didn't really know what cold drake meant. I always assumed it meant, they don't breathe fire. But no, Tolkien confirms in this poem that cold drakes are dragons that breathe ice.
Yeah.
So ice-breathing dragons confirmed in Middle-earth. So
nice. Yeah, once we finish the Silmarillion, we can always dive into The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, chapter by chapter.
Chapter. The Lost Tales.
We'll go through the history of Middle-earth.
Yeah.
I just got the 3-volume set for Christmas, so.
The new hardbacks, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
In black, yeah, they look nice.
I have the first box set of that because it's multiple box sets. But
yeah,
but Beren and Lúthien. So this, before we get into the plot, I think it's worth touching on how central this story is to not just the Legendarium but Tolkien's life. Because he made very little secret of the fact that, the initial inspiration for this story is his courtship of his wife, Edith. I mean, their names are Beren and Lúthien on their headstones. So.
Yeah. It's so ridiculously just follows their courtship. It's not even a little different. I want to say Edith is both like him. He's an orphan. He's under. There's a priest, I guess, who's taken him in.
Yes.
And he forbids him from seeing Edith for a year, and he gets transferred off to a boarding school, and he doesn't see her, and until he finishes his studies, and literally like the last day he goes and sees her, and she's been betrothed to another. And like it's
and Edith is also older than him, I believe.
Yes. Yep.
So not the age gap is not as tremendous as between Beren and Lúthien, but very
yeah, that is an age gap when you think about it.
Only in numbers, I guess, not so much in like physical maturity. Like I always imagined they look like around the same age, but it just so happens that Luthien is like, I don't know. Is she thousands of years old by this point? I'm not sure.
She is born in before the sun, if I remember correctly.
Oh, that's right.
So
the trees, she's there. She's born when the trees are still around, and we were talking last time about the Valiant years and how many years those are compared
14,000 years, something like that.
Yeah, some crazy number.
Yeah. So there's really, and that's always been a question in my mind as to the three relationships we move into now. Like we have Beren and Lúthien, and then we have, eventually we get to Tuor, and oh goodness, her name just escaped me, but
Idril.
I said those two relationships. There is an attempt at a relationship between Turambar and another elf within Doriath, but it doesn't go well. Shocking nobody.
and then there's
right.
Yeah, and then we have Arundel and Elwing.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Who are both like half elves, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they're part of it's all part of the same bloodline, and that's what Aragorn and Arwen are kind of the final consummation of that, bringing the two houses of the people, of the children of Ilúvatar back together in their marriage and in their children.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But it's always a wonder in my mind, like, so if Lúthien is hundreds, possibly thousands of years older than Beren, like, what is the maturity difference there? Because I know when I encounter 20-year-olds as a 40-something now, like it's hard. It's rough for me to deal with 20-year-olds.
It is, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man, I used to be that annoying.
Right. I think of that too. Yeah. That out. I was like, was I really like that? It's like,
yes.
Right. It's like, now as in the workplace as a closer to 40 than 35 person, I find myself identifying more with the people in their 40s and 50s than the other people in their 30s and 20s. And I'm like, I'm officially old.
Yeah.
Or more Bilbo than you are, Frodo. You want to stay home with your books and your cozy house.
Yeah. I identify a lot with Bilbo. I have for years, but it's like, I just hope. In fact, I was just messaging somebody today about how, who knows, maybe I'll be dragged into some crazy like adventure scheme, kicking and screaming when I hit 50.
It seems to be the time that happens. It's when you're 50.
Right. Yeah. Even Frodo was 50 when the adventure happens. But yeah, I wonder how, because Lúthien seems pretty, mature in this story. She knows how to handle herself. She knows how to handle her father.
Yeah.
Whereas Beren seems more impulsive. I mean, definitely, impulsive to speak, impulsive to act. Whereas Lúthien has that long view of things, like her mother, Melian. In fact, I think, and this may be getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, I think Thingol and Beren are more alike in personality than Thingol would like to admit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and this is where, Thingol's been getting more jerk-like as we've gone forward through the Silmarillion. And this is where he really, puts out there, I'm going to be, I'm basically going to be one of the villains in this story. Mm-hmm. I'm not the villain, but I'm one of them.
Yeah. Well, he calls the doom upon himself by wanting a Silmaril. Because it says he's, we're jumping way ahead, but he's by wanting to get a Silmaril, which are now they're basically curse objects at this point. Because if you desire one, you're going to fall under the doom of Mandos that applies to all the House of Feanor and a few others. So,
well, yeah, and that's the thing. The oath that was taken by the House of Feanor and some of the other elves, but the doom is anybody who left. So even the House of Finarfin, it's still the doom is still on Galadriel. It's still on, even as much as we like Fingolfin and Finrod, they're still trapped by it, and Thingol just walks right into it.
Right, and he was not in Valinor. He did not take part in any of the events that led to the doom, but you can still get entrapped in it.
Yeah.
And so the Silmarils are the long backstory of this. Of more immediate backstory importance to Beren and Lúthien is that we're in the aftermath of the Bragalach. So the Battle of Sudden Flame.
Dagor
Bragalach. Yeah. And you have to say it like Bragalach.
Yeah.
You have to have that.
You're something back in your throat. You've been chewing on cud or something.
Bragalach. So exactly. But the men and elves have lost, basically. They've lost the whole northern plains to Morgoth. That whole beautiful grassy area is now the gasping dust.
On
Fauglith, one of the best place names in that Tolkien did, I think.
Yeah. I love both of them. I love how it turns from one to the other.
Yes.
It's just there was the guarded plain to the gasping the plain of gasping dust. Yeah.
Yeah. But Beren's father, Barahir, and his men were involved in that battle in helping the elves. And because of the aftermath of that, they've all been essentially, they're all outlaws now. They're all, essentially underground. They're almost like the French resistance, kind of, in a way, the armies have been defeated. So now it's just individual people and small groups. We're trying to waylay Morgoth and make trouble for the orcs, essentially behind enemy lines. And I think they said, wasn't it right? Morgoth puts a price. Was it a price on Barahir's head or on Beren that was the same as King Fingon?
It was Beren.
It was Beren. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Because Barahir hassles him enough that he puts Sauron on it, and he's like, "Go figure this out."
Oh, that's right.
Mm-hmm. And Sauron manages to tempt the guy, which is, with his wife.
Oh, Gorlim.
Very sad story. Yeah,
you feel so bad for that guy. What did you guys think of that?
He had a rough time because, it talks about how it's this guy's wife she was missing after the battle, and he came home and his home, I guess, is still standing, and his lands were still standing, but she was gone, and he doesn't know what happened to her. And he's, Sauron either is impersonating her or uses sorcery to, cast an image of her in the house to kind of draw him in. And then he's captured by Sauron to, and he thinks that they have his wife, so he's gonna give up whatever, he's gonna give up the information on where Barahir and the company are hiding in order to see his wife and be with her. But of course, it says I'll give you, you'll see her again very soon, and then it says he puts him to death cruelly.
I feel like anytime you hear you hear the bad guy make that. Oh yeah, you'll be with her soon. Like, God, what's his
Dune.
name? Dr. Yue in Dune. Yeah. Oh,
Dune.
you'll be with her soon.
Yeah, I
You're like,
thought
oh,
of
I'm
that
gonna
too.
die now, aren't I?
Yeah.
Freaking Harkonnens. Anyways. Yeah, it's such a sad tale, and it's funny. This is one of those things that when I read it as a young man, it was just kind of like, "Oh, come on, man! Like, why did you think this was your wife? Like, why did you fall into this trap?" And now that I've married and have kids, I'm like, I can definitely see, I can see where this would work, because like when you're you're missing your family and they're gone and you want to get them back, and there's a chance, and you're pretty good at this sneaking thing. Like you figure, hey, maybe that really is her. So I had a lot less sympathy for him when I read this as a younger man, but I have a lot more sympathy for him now as an older guy.
Yeah, it's like he doesn't betray his friends out of like for any kind of like evil gain. He's not Maeglin, basically.
Mm.
He's not Maeglin who betrays Gondolin because he's a dirtbag. It's like
Because he has
Gorlim is a more sympathetic character.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then the creepy dream happens where Beren sees like the wraith, and there's some great artwork of this. I forget whether it's Alan Lee or John Howe who did the artwork of the wraith of Gorlim like floating across the water, and the trees are all full of crows. And it's so unsettling.
Yeah, if you've ever been out in the woods, on a hike around a lake, and you encounter a tree or two that is just chock full of crows, and it's like the winter and they're all crowing, it is one of the most eerie experiences you will ever encounter. Like the only thing that could have heightened that would have been fog. If it had been foggy too, I'd be like, nope, we're not doing this. I got out of the car.
We're turning around and going home.
I heard the crows. No, back in the car. But in that scene, I feel very much like this is another hand of Olwe kind of a thing, because this happens obviously while he's next to the waters, and he's trying to warn them. And this is yet another one of sorry, I said Olwe, didn't I? Olmo. Dadgummit. Okay. I'll get him straight someday. No, I won't. Anyways. This is one of Olmo's gambits. Like, he's got all these gambits going. I'm like, I'm gonna save Middle Earth. I'm gonna do it. And he's got all these going, and it just does, like, it gets Beren there, but he's too late. Like most of Olmo's gambits, they just don't pan out.
Playing his poker, he's on the cards are on the table. There's one more card that's going to come up, and he thinks it's a flush, but it's not.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Two of spades. Oh, come on. Sorry.
Yeah. It's like in those movies where you see someone with the dice and it's like snake eyes, and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
No, yeah, but I mean, at least Beren, he doesn't get back in time to say, because Beren is off doing something. I don't really know if
he went on a mission. His father sent him on as a spy on a spy mission, basically to I guess gather some intelligence on what they're going to do next, probably. Right.
So that saves him from being killed, but he doesn't get back in time to save anybody. But I guess the trail of the orcs is still fresh, because Beren follows it and then finds the orcs. The orcs have hacked off Barahir's hand so that they can bring the ring of Felagund that Finrod gave to Barahir back to Sauron as a token to say, like, we did it, boss. And so, like, because, they could just say they went out and killed all those people. Sauron's smart enough to know that they could just say they did it, and he wants them to show their work, basically.
Yeah.
But Beren's able to get the ring back by killing that guy and some of the other orcs who are there.
Yeah. I like this scene because he buries his father with the boulders. And then he swears an oath of vengeance. So he puts himself under oath, and it's very brief. Like, it's just that one sentence, and it goes on, and you're like, I feel like this has more import than that, because now he has bound himself into an oath of vengeance against whoever killed my father, right? And if we track it back, okay, yeah, he kills these orcs, but then the next guy on the list is Sauron, and then the guy after that is Morgoth. And so he's effectively tied himself in with an oath of vengeance. And I think that part's important. I also think the hand, there is a similarity. So you have his father's hand gets cut off, and the ring gets rescued, right? And then later we have Beren. I don't know if I should spoil it or not, but I feel like it's an 80-year-old book at this point. I'm not. Maybe it's not.
Well,
80
you
years
alluded
old,
to it that the hand is of importance. Beren will eventually lose a hand. Yes. Yeah.
And then I was even thinking while you were saying that, I thought you were going for the ring gets cut from Sauron's hand, much further down the line by the descendant of Beren and Lúthien, by Isildur. And then, their ultimate descendant, Aragorn, is part of the quest that leads to Sauron's, ultimate defeat too. Yeah. And Earendil's part of what leads to Morgoth's defeat. So, so he's putting, so if this oath is like, if it's part of the Middle Earth oaths where that means something, and that if you don't fulfill them, you're in trouble or whatever, it does get fulfilled by his descendants, even if it's not fulfilled by him necessarily.
Right. There's the great thing about Middle Earth is that you can see the ripples go on down the ages and just keep playing out in different forms, in different time periods of the saga, which is just amazing.
Culminating in Luke cutting Vader's hand off at the fight at the Battle of Endor.
That's right.
Sorry.
I'll never turn to the dark side.
And then Sauron returns somehow.
That's right.
Somehow.
Yeah. I think in an effort to avoid that is the reason why he only wrote one chapter of that sequel. He's just like, wait, this is going to end up really dumb if I keep going this route. But in any case, so Beren, like you say, he swears this oath of vengeance, and I had the same thought where I was like, oh, that was fast. He killed that guy, but you're totally right that it really sort of clues him into the whole war against Sauron and Morgoth that's been going on for however many hundreds of years now, and will continue to go on for ages and ages. Yeah. But Beren's trials have only just begun, because the poor guy ends up like essentially a marked man. He, like we said earlier, he has that bounty put on him that's the same price that's on the High King of the Elves, Fingon. So, and eventually he just has to leave and his little area that he's been hiding in, and has to go through like the worst place in Beleriand. Nan Dungortheb. Yeah, I love the Valley of Dreadful Death.
And I love how it describes it in this chapter. It's like, it's this place where the evil sorceries of Sauron and the confusing sorceries of Melian come to dwell, and mesh together. And then also Ungoliant Spawn is down there making webs and making it terrible. And I'm like, yeah,
nameless things too.
Yes, I love that part.
And nameless things.
Yeah, no food fit for humans. So
the nameless things that existed, but I can't remember if they say it's existed before the sun or existed before the stars. But I almost think it's before the stars. And so you have
that's very Lovecraftian.
Yeah, and he says like multi-eyed horrors. I think is yes. He mentions the many eyes, and so I'm thinking of like a half wolf, half octopus, 10-eyed monstrosity shuffling around. Even the spiders are afraid of it, kind of a deal. And there's, you know, there's one of those every 2 valleys. Like, it's just these nameless creatures.
Yeah, the spiders are probably afraid because at least the spiders look like something recognizable.
They're just bigger.
Yeah. But, and they say that, like, this, like, Beren never speaks of this again because the memory is just too terrible. And they say, like, that this is not, like, that this is actually one of his greatest feats, that he makes it out of this place alive and still sane.
Yeah.
Well, it says he doesn't want to dwell on it because if he does, the memory will drive him mad, or could drive him mad because of how intense it was.
You see, this is another, like, Bilbo going, could you tell me more about that? No, Bilbo.
Right, yeah, where he's getting the information from people to write the Silmarillion.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, like, can we go into more detail? And he's like, definitely this 1,000-yard stare is just like, no, Bilbo. No, thank you. Yeah, and actually this place, I was reading in the Lost Tales that this place, Nan Dungortheb, it's the Valley of Dreadful Death now, but in an earlier version, it was actually the Valley of the Dark Idols. And it had to do something with, like, evil men had put up, like, idols to, like, Lovecraftian elder ones or something. Yep. It was really weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, who knows what's going on there? But, you know, Beren gets, you know, he goes from that and he's able to make his way through Melian's wards that she's put around Doriath, which, if you guys remember from earlier episodes, she predicted this. Melian prophesied that there was someone who would come with a doom greater than her power laid on him and would be able to go through her mazes without, you know, wandering off or starving to death or whatever it is people do when they try to get through the girdle.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, Melian, like, she married into the elven bloodline to, you know, I really do think it's a grand plan by Iluvatar to make men the masters of Arda eventually, but they need that infusion of, you know, of elvish blood to kind of make them more noble. They need that, and the elves need that infusion of Maiar blood from Melian. So it's all kind of a part of the plan. And so I was just kind of thinking, like, she's just over there, like, she's hidden, but she's like holding a gate open for him to, and, you know, she's hidden, but he can't see her. And she's just, like, you know, drawing him into this one little area that he can get through, but she's not telling Thingol about it. She's saying, oh, it's part of the doom. Can't do anything about it. Because Thingol just doesn't listen to her ever.
Yeah, you get this feeling that she's a little duplicitous in all of it. Like, she is like, she kind of knows what's going on, and she's like, yeah, we're gonna, my husband's gone a little nuts. We're gonna get this, we're gonna get this to happen.
Right. Or it's like, or I was thinking where it's like, oh, but Beren just had the issue of Nintendo Power about this game, so he found the secret entrance.
Found the power glove in done or Gordon. Up, down, AB, plus minus.
Right. It's like, or it's like, how do you get, what's that place in, I've always thought of the girdle like that place in the Zelda games where if you don't get through the maze right, it sends you back to the very beginning and you have to do it over again. The forest of something or other. I can never remember what that place is called, but I remember being so aggravated by it because as soon as you take a wrong turn, it shunts you back to the beginning of the maze. Yeah. So I always thought of it like that.
Forest of eternal anger.
Yeah, that's what it should be called.
Forest of broken controller.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But yeah, and so this, like, the iconic part where he discovers Luthien, I think, is actually literally inspired by a moment that Tolkien and Edith had together where, like, she was dancing and apparently even the trees are the same. Like, they're the same types of trees, the same types of flowers that were in this glade they were in, at least versions of the story that I've heard. So it's like, yep, Definitely not semi-autobiographical.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all.
Not at all. Yeah. But it's one of those fairy tale love at first sight, moments. Like you can almost hear that stereotypical music, da 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 da, like
oh,
because poor Beren is smitten at first sight. Yeah. But Luthien, manages to evade him at first, and there's actually a third player in this, the minstrel Daron, who is apparently Luthien's secret admirer, Doriath, and so when they actually start, spending time together, Luthien and Beren, Daron betrays them, and so gets Beren arrested. So.
Yeah, I like what they say, or what he says about Luthien, and that she has a doom fall upon her, and she loves him at first sight. And it's sort of like, it's a very interesting way to put it, right? It's not just, and she saw him and loved him or anything. It's she has a doom fall upon her as well. It almost makes you feel like it's sort of this outside force driving the issue.
Yeah, like you said, Jeff, like the will of Iluvatar,
because this is, this is played out. It plays out again with, of course, with Aragorn and Arwen. Like she sees him, or they see each other, and she's kind of never, that's kind of the start of her falling in his, and maybe not the right choice of words, but kind of falling from being an elf to becoming mortal, because she's, she knows where her heart goes, and and it's almost a similar thing with Aragorn, because at least in the books, Aragorn knows he's going to become the king, because no less than the king of Gondor can marry, or Elrond says, no less than the king of Gondor can marry my daughter Arwen. So he has to. So it's kind of a similar deal in the quest that Beren takes up to get the Silmaril.
Right, except Elrond is more cool about it and less of Thingol the Grouch, like Thingol is.
Yeah.
Oh, and an interesting note is that guy who turns them in, Daron, when I was reading the Lost Tales, it turns out in a much earlier draft of this, Daron was actually Luthien's brother, not her admirer.
Right.
And it was more him out of fear that he turns Beren in. But as the story evolved over time, he became this. And we don't really hear much from that guy ever again. The only thing strange detail to remember, but it's like he created those runes that the dwarves end up using. Daron's runes.
Okay.
But that's like really the only thing we ever hear of that guy again. But yeah, Beren is brought before Thingol, and Thingol is just, he's rude. Like, it's rude. Like what happened to you, man? I'm like,
used to be cool.
He used to be cool, man.
Well, he was until he's the stereotypical dad with this daughter brings home this guy that he just doesn't approve of, and
from the wrong side of town.
do just from the wrong side of the tracks. They even go so far as to just that Beren, he's all disheveled, and because he's been living in the wild and had to go through that valley of madness and all that stuff. So and he calls him stuff like Thingol calls him baseborn, a spy, a thrall.
I like how Beren, through most of the early interaction, he's sort of bowed head, he's just sort of taking it. And he looks up and sees Luthien, and then he sees Melian. And then Melian just sort of infuses him with confidence. And all of a sudden, he is like Beren of the House of Beor, son of Barahir. I will not be called baseborn. You get
these names I shall not take from thee of baseborn. That was cool.
You almost get the feeling like if he had gone just a step further, it would have been like, yeah, you were hiding back here while we were keeping your realm safe. But he didn't quite go that far.
Yeah, no, yeah. He knows he has to maintain some goodwill.
I can't make her dad get the shotgun out. I got to step back a little bit.
And it was interesting what he says, because Thingol did say he promised Luthien he wouldn't harm Beren, but then he's like, I repent of what I said. I'm sorry I said that. And I'm like, dude.
And Melian just nudges him like, maybe calm down a little bit.
Right, yeah. And his argument is basically like, but this is our daughter we're talking about here, because Beren basically states his intention of wanting Luthien's hand. He says that nothing, neither Angband or hell or anything else, is going to keep him from what he desires. And Thingol uses that against him because he's like, oh, I also desire something that just happens to be in the grip of Angband. And you say Angband doesn't daunt you. Well, let me tell you about the Silmarils. So, yeah, here we go. And as we mentioned earlier, he walks straight into the doom of Mandos.
Mandos is he's just over in the corner. Doom. Yeah. Doom chose poorly.
You see him like sitting at the doorway to the hall, just kind of leaning back in a rocking chair, like with his head back, kind of asleep. And you see like Beren say what would not daunt him. And he like perks an eye open. And then like Thingol says, well, you're now tasked with getting a Silmaril, and he just jerks up. Doom.
That almost sounds like something from The Simpsons.
It does kind of feel that way. You see Olmo just like dash it all. Oh, he's caught up in it too now.
Yep, Thingol has put himself on the naughty list, on Mandos's list of doom.
Yeah.
But
and Beren's kind of caught up in it too, right? Through this whole interchange, because he doesn't swear an oath there, but he does make a statement that's very similar to Feanor's oath. Like with Luthien as the prize instead of the Silmarils. And you combine that with the oath from before where he swears his oath of vengeance. And this is sort of just a further statement of what that oath really entails. And then Thingol says, well, here you go. You're now tied in with all of us. And I think it's one of those master double-edged sword strokes for Thingol, because he's like, well, if you're going to, take my daughter, I'm going to rope you in to our fate, our entire race's fate. You're now tied to all of it. Good job. But then Melian is like, well, yeah, but you just did that to yourself as well, you realize. And he's like, yeah, I'm not minding that.
Because I think he's gambling on the fact that like Beren will just die, because this is he's essentially sending him to his death, because like he wants to have Beren killed but can't. He can't do it himself because he promised Luthien he would not. So in order to weasel his way out of the promise, he's like, I won't technically kill him. Yeah. I'll send him to his death though. Yeah. Just like, okay.
Got this guy Uriah. I need him to be at the front of the battle. Why? Don't worry about the why. I just need him to be at the front, and then when you get to the gates of the enemy, just pull back and just leave him there. That seems kind of treacherous. Just do it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's a very Davidic moment for Thingol.
It definitely, it's definitely that kind of where and just like David was previously a noble king, now doing this really, just gross injustice. You can see Thingol doing the same thing, sort of falling from the heights of majesty. I mean, he was by the waters of Cuivienen. He's like, one of those early generation elves. He saw he saw the light of Valinor. Yeah. He was there.
He did get to see it. Yep.
He did get to see it. So it's like, and now he's petty and,
and you have the same thing with David, where it gets to this point where, it's the season where kings make war and David sits at home on his throne, right? And that's Thingol to a T, right? He just sits and they do a little bit of skirmish stuff at the borders, but they fundamentally don't help the Noldor go after Morgoth or participate in the siege. And so Thingol very much is, in my mind at least, a very Davidic character in that portion of David's life. Unfortunately, he does not get the redemptive arc that David gets.
Yeah. For more, stay tuned for SQPN's review of that new David show that's coming out on Amazon. That actually looks really good, by the way. I'm very excited for that. But yeah, and I actually read something a few months ago where that put Uriah's sort of outlook in a new light, where Uriah goes to his death knowing he knows he's going to die. He knows David has set him up to die. Because David tries to, here's your wife. And, but he's like, no, I know what you've done, David, and I'm not going to help you cover it up. So he basically goes to his death. And it's like, man, it just shows how far David has fallen, right? From the heights of righteousness. But you're right, Patrick. He gets the redemptive arc. Yeah. Although he keeps spiraling out of control because, of course, his son will eventually turn against him. It gets to that point where, where David is evacuating the city and that one guy is just hurling clods of dirt at him. And David's like, I deserve this. I'm going to let this guy throw dirt at me. I deserve this. And it's like, I don't know if Thingol ever gets that kind of moment, but he probably thinks to himself, though, at some point, I shouldn't have done that.
I don't know that he does. I think he's too proud and to have any kind of humility about that he may have made a mistake. So.
Oh, yeah. And that reminds me, he gets more arrogant. I won't spoil what happens to Thingol, but his arrogance essentially kills him later. So he won't stop insulting people. And the fact that he keeps doing that essentially leads to his death. But Beren sets out because he knows one of the only people who can help him is Finrod Felagund. And his family and Finrod share a special bond because Barahir had essentially saved Finrod's life. So he sets out for Nargothrond and is taken in by the elves there. And I love how it says, there's a lot of people perceiving their own death in this, because Finrod, again, realizes that, the oath is in motion and my oath is now tied to it, my oath of friendship with Barahir. And it says he perceives his own coming death. And so he knows that by helping Beren, he's putting in motion events that are going to lead to his demise. But
and before we get there, as Beren's coming up to Nargothrond, because he knows that they'll see him, he knows that Finrod's, his watchers know he's coming, and they would normally kill anyone coming near them that they couldn't identify as a friend. But Beren's just holding up the ring. And, it's his big, FOF tag saying he's a friend, because all the elves, they see it and they bring him right to it. Because they probably know that what it means too, that it's going to be, it's going to be a big deal for them, for Finrod. For Finrod. So.
Yeah. And we now have directly the Feanorian oath being roped in, because staying at Nargothrond at this time are two of Feanor's sons, the Dumb and Dumber here, Celegorm and Curufin. These guys These guys, man.
They have a dog who's pretty cool.
They have a cool dog.
The dog is cool. Yeah, exactly.
This is one of those master strokes of Morgoth that he doesn't even realize he's pulled off, putting these two in Nagathron at the same time, to oppose Finrod Felagund with their oath and Beren's oath and Finrod's oath all coming to a head all at once. And Morgoth, cheerfully unaware that he's pulled this off just by driving them from their lands. And then we get the countermaster stroke of Iluvatar with Huan. It's like, I see your jerk elves. I raise you a talking dog.
Wrong. Where? Baron's in a well?
Yeah.
Where, boy?
Who are? Was that one of your 3 times?
And I love that he's a wolfhound. If you've ever seen like Irish wolfhounds,
they're huge.
They are huge.
They're big dogs.
Big
hairy,
dogs.
Fun dogs.
But yeah, Huan is a good boy, the best boy. And yeah, but he's also in exile. Because he decided to join with the Noldor, he's been banished from Valinor and essentially been put under a death sentence. They say, you're going to die. But before then, and you will die at the hands of the greatest wolf ever known in Middle-earth. But before that, you will speak with human speech 3 times. So he can understand everything people say, but he can only speak 3 times.
Yeah, because he's one of Orome's dogs, right? Yep. One of Orome's actual dogs that was a gift to Celegorm or Curfin, whichever one.
Yeah, which one does he belong to? I can never remember. I think it's
older one, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Celegorm.
Yeah. Older, louder, brasher one.
Yeah, that who makes the speech where he basically recaps his dad's greatest hits in the speech. And, yeah. And again, these people took you in, man. Yeah. They don't know how to be grateful. The Finrod took them in, and yet they're planning to usurp the throne. And they're turning people against Finrod because Finrod basically holds an assembly. And it's like one of those really bad school assemblies where that they've just got some really bad thing to announce. You ever remember those where it was like, especially it's like that one I remember where like the student body council had voted on something that we wanted improved. And the principal just overrode the student body council at the assembly. And, everybody was so peeved. But anyway, it's like one of those awful school assemblies. But at this point, they basically just turn the room against Finrod and basically say, look, we said that nobody, and we mean nobody, is going to withhold a Silmaril from us. Not Demon of Morgoth, elf, man, we don't care. Nobody. So, and Finrod knew this was going to happen. And actually, in this scene is one of the few continuity slip-ups in the Silmarillion. Finrod decides he's going to go with Beren, but before he does that, he delegates power to Orodreth. Now, the Silmarillion says Orodreth is Finrod's brother, but he's not, actually. He's his nephew.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's one of the few slip-ups that, you got to commend Christopher. If that's the only slip-up he didn't catch, gee, wow, he did an amazing job.
Very impressive.
Very most impressive.
But you can also say, brother in the sense of, like my brother elf under Iluvatar or something. I'm just trying
or in the biblical sense of brother, like very wide sense. Yeah. Yeah. Kinsman. Yeah. But yeah, Finrod, he manages to take, 10 companions. So it's 12, there's like a very significant number. It's him, Beren, and 10 companions.
That's how many Barir had in his group, right? There was 12 of them as well that were hunted down by Morgoth.
Yeah.
Was it 12 or was it 10? I can't remember.
I thought it was 12, but I could be wrong. And how many are in the Fellowship in the Ring? Is it also 12?
And 9
Okay.
companions.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember how many Tuor has in his group before they all get whittled down.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because his is, I mean, Beren loses everybody in one fell swoop, but Tuor, poor Tuor, they like get killed off one by one, if I remember right.
But yeah, this group is not, definitely not as successful as the Fellowship of the Ring. Although what is interesting is that like the Fellowship of the Ring could have really used that disguising power that Finrod has, his illusion magic, his kind of fairy glamour almost. He's able to disguise everybody as orcs. They basically kill a bunch of orcs and take their place. And
I like
but they've got
the only reason they don't manage to actually get to Angband is because in going by what used to be Minas Tirith, they don't report in.
They don't report.
It's just like of all the mundane things that ends up getting us.
Yeah, it's because of a matter of bureaucracy that they're caught. They forgot to report in and
didn't send their reports with the TPS covers on them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess paper pusher Sauron here is really interested in their report. So he has them all, brought before him on his new and improved Minas Tirith, which is now Tol-in Gaurhoth, the Isle of Werewolves. Yeah. And they explain, by the way, what werewolves are. So this is not like the Wolfman from Universal Horror. Werewolves in Middle-earth are actually wolves that have been bred to be huge and then have evil Maiar possessing their bodies. Yeah. So that's a thing.
I find that to be far more terrifying. Generally speaking.
Yeah. Yeah. Less of the body horror and more of like the supernatural horror. But then, as you said, Jeff, Sauron, and he still doesn't know what's going on. There's the Finrod and Beren and the others still look like orcs. So, as you put it, a rap battle begins between Finrod and Sauron.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just funny that it's, of course, in Middle Earth, this huge event comes down to a song because
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. I did like the song fragment that is actually put in the book. It's got an interesting meter. Not that I know really anything about poetry, but I know there are different meters, and I'm not familiar with seeing this one anywhere else. So it was just interesting.
Well, and they have, if you get like Beren and Lúthien, they'll have a kind of the expanded what he wrote of the Lay of Lúthien, which is not supposed to be the entire thing, but it's a lot more than you get here. And it does have this sort of different, and it almost feels random in a lot of places, rhyming scheme and alliterative scheme to it. But it's all done very well, which is not shocking because you have a linguist doing it. And that is like, that's one of the hardest parts about English is coming up with interesting rhyming schemes, because we're trapped into repetitive rhyming schemes because our words there's only so many endings you have in words, and they only rhyme with certain other words. Whereas in some other languages, they have a set number of endings to words, and they'll have like a dozen. And so those, like, you get 1,000 words that rhyme with each other. So I could say almost anything.
Right. Yeah. That's why I've always felt so bad for people who are learning English as a second language, because English is this weird basket case language.
Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. I'll explain to you why two of those words aren't used anymore, but everyone still knows what they mean.
Right, yeah. But Sauron manages to win eventually. He strips them of their disguise and it puts them in the dungeon where he's like, okay, if you don't tell me what I want to know, I'm going to have you all killed one by one by werewolves. Hope you enjoy your stay at Hotel Sauron. So, yeah.
So this is really the first large scale Sauron interaction I feel like we really get. You kind of learn who Sauron is and what he's actually capable of. And if you haven't read this stuff and you're watching the Rings of Power, Sauron can kind of come off as maybe not that evil, at least until he's got Celebrimbor on the pike. but before that point, he can strike you as kind of this maybe not as evil as he seems. But when you read the stuff he did in the first age, you're like, oh no, this guy was this guy was terrible. this is pure evil.
He's a sadist. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has no qualms about having people eaten alive for his amusement. And like we said earlier with poor Gorlim, of just like playing people like a fiddle and then like being very amused with himself on, getting them to betray people and then, oh, I'm just going to kill you anyway. So it's like, yeah, no, there's nothing good about this guy, like, and hasn't been for ages. But speaking of the Rings of Power, if you've seen Finrod's death in that, you might be very confused and say, hey, that's not what happened. So.
Yeah.
I mean, Sauron did cause him to die. That's all they really say is that Sauron.
Yeah, that's all they really say. Yeah.
Yeah, and you see his body. It's not like mangled or anything, but you can kind of.
Well, it has big claw marks on it, so I can kind of headcanon.
I kind of headcanon that his body was kind of restored a little bit when you see it, like kind of like how, and the elf Morg guy did his work and mortician. There you go.
Imagine when they had to invent that job because like nobody had died previously. And they're like, oh, yeah, we now need to invent the job of like somebody who makes the dead look nice before we inter them.
Huh. Yeah. I wonder if that.
Yeah, I'd never thought of that before.
That was Feanor's mom. If she was the first, let's make her look nice before we turn her. I mean, it hasn't even worked. Like, you're in Valinor already and you die. Like, did you just, like, they just carry the body over to the halls of Mandos? Like, what?
Mandos? Yeah. Well, no, I think her body stayed where it lay, right? If I remember right. And since nothing decays in Valinor, the body didn't decay. It just stayed like they didn't even need a mortician.
Yeah, because she didn't want to come back and be re-embodied eventually. Like maybe at the end of Arda she would, but
that's the thing. If she got re-embodied, she would have gotten a new body. But since nothing decays in Valinor, her old body would still be there, meaning she could go and see it and be like, "This is a weird experience."
Yeah. Just have this vision of somebody going to the pools like every day for 14,000 years and being like, why does that lady never move? She's dead. What? Nobody told me.
Yeah. It's like, man, she must be having the best sleep ever. She's been asleep for all these centuries. And it's like, oh, no, she did. But yeah, but at this point, nobody actually in the company bends to Sauron and reveals who they are. everybody dies. Everybody gets those 10 companions are all killed. Somehow Sauron intuits that Finrod is the guy in charge, so he leaves him for last. And but at this point, you know, as soon as he puts them in the dungeon, though, Luthien has that, like, you know, Obi-Wan moment where he's like, I feel something terrible has happened, you know, like, so she realized, and then she goes to Melian, who has foresight, and Melian is able to tell her that Beren has been, sorry, your boyfriend has been captured by Sauron.
Womp womp. And it's, you know, it's interesting to me because after, and I don't know, we're backtracking a little bit here, but after Thingol pronounces his, like, task for Beren, Melian takes him aside afterwards and he's like, well, you're either going to lose your realm or you're going to lose your daughter. Good job. And he's like, rah, 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 rah.
He doesn't care.
Right.
Yeah, rah,
Yeah,
rah,
exactly.
rah, rah.
Yeah.
And, you know, because, like, if it goes badly and Beren dies, then Luthien's probably going with him. And if he succeeds, then you end up with the Silmaril. Welcome to the war, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really did not think this through, right? Did he really think the Sons of Feanor were just going to sit there once he got one? Like, But it's like, I think it's easy for us to say that, but it's like, the Silmarils have an effect on people, kind of like the One Ring, where you just stop thinking rationally about them.
I mean, the light of the trees.
Even if you're not, like, in their presence, like Saruman, he becomes obsessed with the One Ring, even though he's never seen it. So,
yeah. Well, and I mean, it's like the light of the trees, you know, they produce that, you know, like, you know, drunken effect almost, like they're, you know, drunk on the bliss of the trees, and the Silmarils are the things that contain that light of within them. So, you know, people are just chasing that, you know, that feeling again if they've had it before, and because it's the only thing left after what Morgoth did in destroying the trees and in Goliath.
right, yeah. But this brings us to the Magic Treehouse. Oh wait, wrong book series. But yes, there is a Magic Treehouse that Thingol builds to forestall Luthien running off to help Beren. He imprisons her in this treehouse, and we basically get the Legendarium's version of Rapunzel.
Yep. Except instead of just long magic hair that either heals people or doesn't cause harm to the wearer when somebody climbs on it, this puts people to sleep like hair does.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, she makes her hair into two items that are useful: a cloak that puts people to sleep and a rope for her to escape from the treehouse. Yeah, and actually, I think it's in the book that's just called Beren and Lúthien. They write out her whole spell that she does to make her hair grow really long, and she basically just names all the longest things in Middle Earth and imbues their longness into her hair. Which is pretty neat.
She sings the song that Mother Gothel taught her. Oh wait, wrong.
Yeah, wrong again. Dang it.
Dag nabbit. Yeah.
She has a pet chameleon. Oh wait.
But yeah, she does escape this way and blunders right into Celegorm and Curufin, who just so happen to conveniently be hunting near the eaves of Doriath with Huon. Huon finds her and brings her to the two elves, who then, you know, say, "Oh, we can help you." You know, like, she doesn't really know much about stranger danger apparently, and is taken in by these guys. "Oh, we can help you find Beren."
Well, I mean, in the end, they are Feanor's kids, and they do have the Noldorian prince bearing. And I mean, in my mind, I'm like, how how did they even get into Doriath? Like,
right.
But then again,
yeah. Well, I don't think they were in it technically.
Okay.
Yeah, they were
kind of on the edge of it. They hadn't hit the girdle yet, because then they just would have been all confused and been like, "What?" and gotten lost. But it was pretty bold of them to be so close to Doriath, because Thingol had said no son of Feanor is ever coming in here. So, but they've got this whole scheme where they're essentially going to hold Luthien hostage and force Thingol to marry her off to Celegorm. So that somehow that makes them like head of all the elves or something like that. I felt like there were a few logical steps missing from their plan. It was the kind of plan where it's like, we marry Luthien equals we become ruler over all the elves equals we get the Silmarils back. And I'm like,
I feel like there's some missing steps that are important.
Pieces, yeah.
They're important that we figure those out.
Yeah.
Step 1, marry Luthien. Step 2, Step 3, become kings and get Silmarils.
Step 4, profit.
Yeah,
profit? Question mark? You know,
yeah, these two.
But luckily Huan is a good boy and becomes enamored of Luthien, as you do, and listens to her story and starts planning to have her escape. So he's a good dog. He's too good a dog for Celegorm. So he does
the moment where he figures it out. It's like, oh, these guys are kind of jerks. I should probably find someone else to be my master.
You're right. Yeah.
And it's just the Doom and the Oath interplaying in the sea boys here. And it's just, you can just see it playing out in their heads. Oh, we'll do this and we'll do this and we'll take over Nagathron and we'll marry her. So we're, part of this house, and we'll just get all the elves under us and we'll take down Morgoth. And I'm like, it didn't, I mean, you guys were all united at one point. You couldn't take down Morgoth, but sure, but it's just the interplay of the Doom and all of that requires betrayal, which is just, Bandos going, told you.
You chose poorly.
Chose poorly.
Yeah. In the earlier drafts, Huan actually talks a lot more. He talks pretty regularly. He actually has a lot of dialogue. And maybe we'll get into this a little bit next time. But in that earlier stuff, Sauron is a cat, and him and Huan have this rivalry because Huan's a dog, and yeah. But speaking of Sauron, but by this point in the dungeon, only Beren and Finrod are left, and a final werewolf comes to finish off Beren. But Finrod has some sort of like last burst of like Noldorian strength. He breaks his chains and then kills the werewolf with his bare hands in single combat, but not before sustaining, mortal wounds. So pour one out for Finrod Felagund.
You're my boy, Finrod.
Yeah.
You're my boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's like with the creation of Middle Earth, it requires sacrifice. Like you pour some of what you are into whatever you're making, whether that's you're making a weapon or you're making, whether you're having a child or something. So I think it's kind of like that. He's putting forth his kind of future, potential energy, like his power into this last attempt. Like, cause he knows he won't be able, he won't need it later. So he's, it's like when you're playing an RPG and you save all your potions and all your items for the you've been hoarding them the whole time, and you get to the final boss, and then it's like, well, I either use them now or I don't use them. So it's kind of like that, where he uses everything he has to, save Beren's life in repayment of the debt of the debt that he has to Bar here.
It's like in Kingdom Hearts, where I would save all my MP because I knew I was going to need those healing spells later.
Super Mario 3, where you save all the items you get till you get to Bowser's World, so you just fly through all of the stuff. You just fight Bowser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I love this because Finrod, being from the House of Finarfin, embodies the sort of Caritas love. And, this is the ultimate sacrifice, right? Mm. Laying one's life down for one's friend. And he does this, and he does this with like full foreknowledge that something like this is going to happen. Like the minute Beren shows up and he tells him the story, he's like, well, I guess that chicken's come home to roost. Like I'm going down. Like my foresight into how I was going to end is playing out now. And this oath, is going to go like this, but you can tell he believes so much in the nobility of the men that he helped uplift, right? Because he's the first one who encounters, I want to say, Beor, right? And his, so it's like, I knew your grandfather, right?
Noldor, who did.
Right. I don't count the Sidarians in this. Yeah, sure. They met them, but he's the first Noldor. He's probably the first elf, who'd seen the light of the trees, right? That they met, and has that sort of ness of Valinor. I don't even know, essence of Valinor sort of permeating his being. And he's now, from uplifting Beor, now he's dealing with his grandson Beren, and decides, I have to keep my oath. But not just that, is I believe in the righteousness of this cause, and I will lay down my life for it. And I think, of all the Noldor, Finrod's probably the best, but unfortunately he's still under the doom. And so it still comes back at him.
Yeah, and it's interesting how, so of course in the Rings of Power, his death sends Galadriel on her crazy flames across my face inducing revenge quest against Sauron. But
part of her doom.
In the real Legendarium, it is interesting to me that yes, right, yeah. It is interesting though that Galadriel will be entangled with Beren's family for like millennia to come.
Yeah, up until the very end. Yeah.
Up until the very end, yeah, because Arwen is Galadriel's granddaughter,
and she was besties with Elrond, who is a descendant. Although that may depend on the source you're pulling from.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's like you can. It's just interesting that and I wonder where Galadriel is at this point. She must have witnessed at least some of these events. Like, I'm wondering, was she in Nargothrond or Doriath at this point?
I assume she's in Nargothrond.
She's in Gondolin, right? I thought she was in Gondolin.
No, she doesn't go to Gondolin. At some point before the end of the First Age, her and Celeborn travel over the Blue Mountains into Eriador.
Okay.
So she may have already booked it, but I don't know.
I feel like that does not happen until the Neonathron Nordian. I think it's after that point.
Oh, yeah.
Because right now she's still got her brother, right? Well, not right now. Like we're finally to the point where she doesn't. As Finrod, Finrod passes, but before this, in Nargothrond, she still has her brother. I almost feel like she's kind of, she's probably leading something of a little bit of a resistance against Curufin and Celeborn, their sort of attempt to take over Nargothrond. But yeah, we don't get anything explicitly about her and what she's doing.
Yeah. But it's just cool to think about, though. It's like, where are all these people, when this is going on, because elves live so long. They're part of all these events. So, yeah. But yeah, that sort of brings us to the end. But I know, Pat, you want to read the last paragraph just of Beren's and Finrod's encounter with the werewolf, just to send us off on a nice little put a nice bow on this first half of Beren and Lúthien's story.
Well, and before you do that, I was just looking up on the internet what Galadriel was up to, and it basically says that she didn't really have any role in the event, any significant role in the events of the War of the Jewels. But it says at some point before the fall of Nargothrond, she and Celeborn passed over the mountains to Eriador.
Okay.
So she gets out before. I don't know if that's is the fall of Nargothrond part of the Neo-Nathanordian, or is that something different?
It's long after
it.
Okay.
It's when Torrent, yeah, which makes sense. I kind of feel like when Torrent shows up, she's probably like, "Yeah, I'm out." Like, this is gonna go badly. All right. So we started with the first paragraph. We're going to end with the last one for this. In the pits of Sauron, Beren and Felagund lay, and all their companions were now dead. But Sauron proposed to keep Felagund to the last, for he perceived that he was a Noldor of great might and wisdom, and he deemed that in him lay the secret of their errand. But when the wolf came for Beren, Felagund put forth all his power, and burst his bonds, and he wrestled with the werewolf, and slew it with his hands and teeth. Yet he himself was wounded to the death. Then he spoke to Beren, saying, I go now to my long rest in the timeless halls, beyond the seas and the mountains of Aman. It will be ere long I am seen among the Noldor again, and it may be that we shall not meet a second time in death or life. For the fates of our kindreds are apart. Farewell. He died then in the dark, in Tol Garoth, whose great tower he himself had built. Thus King Finrod Felagund, fairest and most beloved of the house of Finwë, redeemed his oath. But Beren mourning beside him in despair.
And Beren shouts, "You're my boy, Finrod. You're my boy." And then he sings "Dust in the Wind." Oh wait,
dust in the wind. No, but with that,
sorry.
No, that's fine.
I know we're at the end of a long recording.
Cliffhanger, folks.
We're making these jokes.
With that cliffhanger, you'll have to wait till next time to find out does Beren make it out? Find out
Does
next
one
time
say
on the
3 words?
In a world.
In a world.
This section was more Beren and Finrod than Beren and Lúthien in a lot of ways, just because they're that's part of more of the action. But of course, it's within the context of that story. But yeah, R.I.P. to Finrod. And I don't think we ever really know that he gets re-embodied. I don't think. I think he talks about I think was it just in the section you read where it says I'll walk again in the halls with my father or something like that?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So, eventually he'll be re-embodied, but I don't think we ever get a resolution on that. So it's probably still in the halls of Mandos with all the other, House of Finwë oath swearers. So
yeah.
Or doom, or not oath swearers, but doom of doom takers, I guess. I don't know.
Doom of Mandos.
What the word should be. Yeah.
Mandos is just like, hey, what took you so long? But before we wrap up, Jeff, I think you had some feedback from our Discord channel.
Yeah, really just one bit of feedback. And yeah, we didn't get any any submissions in for your House of Finway family tree craft. So you can still turn it in for partial credit if you turn it in before our next recording. So, but the only bit of feedback was just from Tammy, our friend Tammy, on Discord says, and this was on House of Finway, says, I'm only 1 minute, 43 seconds into this episode, and I've already choked on my lunch twice while laughing, putting it on pause to finish eating. I think she was, I think our intro is what made her laugh, she said. So
what
I think it was our intro where we were doing like the Fëanor and Sons jewelry and,
yes, that was it. Fëanor and Sons.
We should have done a Valentine's Day sale.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's most of the feedback we had. But yeah, join on the Discord, because there was some good discussion recently of Tolkien's place among non-Christian people who have liked Tolkien. So there was some good discussion on that. So
yeah, always some neat discussions and back and forth going on the Discord channel. Like, honestly, SQPN's Discord is one of the only social medias I actively even check anymore. That's because everything else is just a dumpster fire. But
yeah,
be that as it may.
And Gortheb of spider pits and
the Valley of Dreadful Death. Yeah, the Twitter feed of Dreadful Death. Tell me about it. Yeah, but before until next time, when we will hopefully complete the story of Beren and Lúthien. But until then, we would like to take a moment to thank our great patrons who make this show possible. And this time we would like to thank Nate and Jessica V, Daniel B, Elijah H, Jonathan M, and Laura S. Their generous donations help us to continue to create the secrets of Middle-earth and all of the shows here at StarQuest. You can join them at sqpn.com/give. And so now we'd like to hear from all our great listeners. What do you think about Beren and Lúthien? Do you have a favorite part of this great adventure? What are you most looking forward to in Part 2? You can let us know on our Facebook page, on X. You can send us an email to middleearth@sqpn.com. You can leave a comment on our YouTube channel or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. So until next time, Pat Mason, thank you for joining me in sharing the secrets of Middle-earth.
You're very welcome, Thomas, and I'm cautiously optimistic about the future of the story.
I am too. And Jeff Haecker, thank you as well.
Thomas.
And once again, I'm Thomas Salerno. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Middle-earth on StarQuest.
Here's another show on the StarQuest network you're sure to enjoy. The Secrets of Technology. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/technology.